Welcome everyone to the LTH product briefing. I'm here today with Otto von Zastrow-Marcks, the CEO and founder of Midpage, a generative AI product for litigators. Welcome, Otto.
Hi, nice to meet you.
It's great to have you here. Otto, I've been intrigued by this product. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about the background and how you came to found Midpage?
Sure. Last year in computer science, all the people that write code suddenly had this revolution of now you're writing code with AI. And this is a reality that has already sort of changed for every programmer today. I had a bunch of friends that were lawyers and was like a huge fan of those tools. And I really wanted to sort of bring that to the legal world as well. Yeah, and that's why we started Midpage. We're still a young startup, but we have a team of lawyers and litigators and computer scientists, so we can sort of get both worlds, and just launched the first product.
And what's the precise problem that you set out to solve? How did you decide you were going to help your lawyer friends?
So language models are really good at some things, but not at everything. They're really good at sort of skimming over a huge amount of text, maybe like pre-filtering and like finding some things that you should look at first. And they're also good at, writing a lot of dumb text, but not at the difficult parts. So we looked for the parts of law where there's the most reading and writing of cases. And that's why we picked litigation to start, because obviously there are 11 million cases that are the most important, and there's way more stuff to filter through every time.
It's a sensible approach. And so you've decided to focus in on litigation, and specifically within litigation, legal research and drafting for litigators.
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent. Well, let's jump in and take a look.
So I'm going to share my screen. Now, when you open Midpage, you want to research on some issue. As a litigator, you might have some notes from your client or something that your partner sent you to look at. I'm just going to paste in some bullet points here. This could be anything. It could be long, could be short, you can leave it out. But because I'm now a litigator working on a case where some issue with a terms and buttons condition on a web page being slightly too small. So I pasted some notes about this in here, and I'm going to start doing some research for that case, and then show you guys how we're sort of sticking close to how the litigator works today, but at every step sort of infusing these new generative AI capabilities. And because it's all in one platform, there's research, the organizing research and the drafting, also a lot of synergies from having this all be connected. So first, the first problem that we wanted to solve is that there's just way too much stuff to look at. So if I just start a normal search here, and this could be anything, and just looking at case law, so you can like filter by jurisdiction, things like that. But you quickly notice that there are too many cases to look at everything. And it sometimes takes a lot of time until you've like decided, well, this case is not good, this other one is good. And we really wanted to help with that one. So what we can do now with AI is to look at how is the outcome of that case? Is that sort of what I was looking for? And here, because it's actually not quite what I was going for, I can skip that case before I open this whole 30-page document.
And also, where's the content being pulled from?
So this is from a database with many millions of cases. So people that know the sort of court listener project might remember this. But we have basically all presidential relevant cases in there. And then so there can be federal law or state law. And yeah, the AI sort of first finds an excerpt that's helpful. And then for this part below here, we just looked at the whole original document and said, well, ask the AI to sort of generate a quick outcome summary, like a head note, to help me decide should I use this or not.
And so when you say federal and state laws, US jurisdiction specific at the moment. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so if I continue here, and I can get a more detailed summary if I want, but this is fine. I'm just going to go to the next one because maybe this one is more promising. If I'm interested in any particular part of this, I can always open that section of that document. But now what I find really cool is that when you're doing this as a litigator, you would often ask the same questions for every case that sounds roughly relevant. Are the facts similar enough? What about the facts is different? And maybe you have some other questions particular to your search that you want to answer for every single cases. And so, yeah, that's where we just build features to help with these very small but super useful things. So if I want to compare the facts, I can just start generating here. And it's going to write me an analysis of, oh yeah, here's some like 3 things that are similar about this case. Maybe both were about a click wrap agreement where the button size like played a particular role. And it's always going to this AI generated text add an excerpt so that you can actually use this blue part here. That is human written text. So there's definitely no chance of this being inaccurate. And you can then open that particular section of the document instead of having to dig through the whole thing.
To be clear, it's sharing the current facts that you've entered to the case that you're researching currently.
Exactly, yeah. So in my notebook, basically, I have this sort of section where I just gave it these few details from here, and that's where it's basing it on. And if you're interested in something particular, you can add this in here, and then it will be part of the comparison.
And it's always providing sources, and then within those sources, the specific specific sections of the case that are relevant as well. So you know you can rely on the answer.
Exactly, yeah, because like I'm sure you've heard many sort of AI tools that were inventing cases and doing things like that. So it's very important to use AI at the places where it's not going to be inaccurate and where you can sort of rely on the outputs. And yeah, sort of having sources to verify that helps with that and helps to jump into the text directly. So this was one example, but then maybe one other thing that you remember doing yourself a lot is then looking through this whole case and trying to like find particular things. We want to give you the ability to control that a bit more closely. So maybe what would be like a tricky question to answer about this case? Something like whether the button size itself actually played a pivotal role in this case. And this is something that, Control F is probably not going to find very easily, but I'm just going to ask this here. I'm just going to give it a small title as well, because then later we can see the answers to several different questions. Maybe one other question that would be cool is, what is the relationship between the parties?
So when you give it a title, it allows you to effectively save these as criteria that you can then reapply as queries in later parts of your research or within other cases that you want to also query.
Exactly, because there might be like a bunch of different things I want to know about these. And now you can see I have these two questions that I asked here. And if I now go back to this case, I can see the answers to those questions for each other case results that I'm looking at. And so in this one, okay, the button size seems to have not played a particular role, and the relationship between the parties. Also, if you're curious, feel free to give your own example. This is sort of quite flexible, and it allows sort of the lawyers to really use generative AI in like a more creative way, and sort of really trying to remove the dumb parts where you're doing repetitive work.
And Otto, I know one of the other features here is, I'm a litigator, I'm doing research, it's helpful getting this information, and then things that are particularly helpful I want to save because I'm going to use them later to write up a memo or another document. Am I able to do that right in Midpage as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Of course, when you have done several hours of research, you actually end up with quite a lot of open tabs. Maybe you have an email thread where you like copy paste in some snippets and keep adding to that stuff, or you're doing it in Word. And we think there's a much better way of doing it. So here, of course, like this part may not look that crazy, just sort of highlighting some things that sound right. We can also use generative AI to maybe like create a parenthetical, which humans can do this themselves easily, but maybe it's just a bit distracting. And all the note taking, the citations, the formatting of that is suggested here, so you can still edit it if you don't like it. And this way, sort of, you can accumulate things in the same speed. But when you finish your research, you now have like a very well organized notebook with all the excerpts all linked to that section. And maybe one last thing, if I want to here, so if there's like a case reference that sounds interesting, because not only is that the issue that I was kind of interested in, but also I'm going to be shown a quick summary before I open this case, so that if I still think this is actually relevant, I'm not going to just have another open tab later, but I'm just also going to save this to the same sort of collection of things that I found relevant.
That's great. That's so helpful.
Yeah, and now it's sort of all in here. I can see, oh, these were the different notes that I had. And if you want to share this with your colleague, you can sort of just export this and he'll be able to like find the right sections much quicker and sort of also see the other parts of research.
And then you can use these as well to draft, right?
Yeah, so that's the last step. Like drafting, we don't want to have AI sort of you press a magic button and then it's going to write the whole thing for you. Instead, there's some parts about drafting that are very annoying, and we want to help with those parts. So we have this very large collection of research that you've now done yourself, and all the parentheticals and the excerpts and the cases were added by you manually, sometimes suggested by the AI, but sort of you're in control of that process. Now we want to use drafting only to sort of write maybe one paragraph, one particular thing, stringing together one of the excerpts that you've seen earlier, and then adding links to that. And then this is how sort of your interaction maybe as a partner with a junior litigator look like. Maybe, write this one thing about this one argument. So if I want to do this here, this may be halfway through your draft. I'm just going to say, okay, use my excerpt from the Grant Connect case, compare it to our facts maybe, and you can sort of guide it in what it should emphasize here, but it's just going to write this very quick thing and add the right links so that you can then copy sort of this thing into your Word document.
It's very cool. And so you can use this almost like code within your text that you're writing yourself, and then that's like a shortcut to pull in the relevant research that you've done.
Exactly, yeah. And this is the way sort of that it should be, right? It should be suggesting some parts, but you still want to write some of the things yourself.
Yeah, it saves a ton of time. It pulls everything together into effectively a lawyer desktop, but it keeps the lawyer in control every step of the way, even while they're using generative AI. This is awesome. And Otto, a couple of other things. I know you have an extension, a browser extension or plugin, and you have a Word plugin coming soon as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so lawyers use Word a lot, and they look at various different platforms like Lexis and Casetext and so on to find cases already. And so it makes sense to bring sort of this layer of AI where they're already working. With our Chrome extension, if I want to look at, this could be any website here. So this could be Westlaw as well. If I want to see, so this is some random case that I just pulled up. If I want to find some research and then compare the results maybe from Lexis and Westlaw and Casetext, I can sort of save them all to Midpage and then sort of do this organization of notes there if I want to. And also across all of these pages, you have some of the Midpage features that are available on every website that has cases. Here, you can see like this quick summary that we've seen earlier. We can also get this on this other random website that is not part of Midpage.
That is so cool. So even though Midpage is drawing specifically from the court listener database, you actually can use it on any research database effectively as a plugin.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're still using our own data in the background, but we're just sort of overlaying this information here.
Right, right.
And this feature, even though these small sort of outcome summaries are quite a simple thing, we have some people that are using this 1,000 times per week. And so that said us, oh, this is kind of deeply integrated because it does actually really reduce the amount of tabs that you need to keep open at a given time. And then that's something that we'll seem to like.
Yeah, I mean, it changes effectively, and not just does it help you do your research and your notes and your drafting, but it also helps you read. It helps you in the way that you digest the law. Otto, you can close out of the demo now if you like. I actually, as you know, when your colleague Daniel came and presented to my law school class, I had one of the students then use Midpage afterwards for a law review project. And he said it saved him an enormous amount of time. And he found it useful, even the small things like making sure that the citations were correct and not having to write those out. So Otto, thank you so much for being with us and for showing us Midpage. For those of you watching, we will put a URL along the bottom that shows you how to get in touch with Otto and see or use Midpage for yourself. And Otto, thank you for being with us for the product briefing.
Great. Yeah. Thanks a lot. It's free to try out for everybody. And yeah, thanks, Nikki. It was fun.
Excellent. And for those watching, thank you so much for joining us for the LTH product briefing.